It's a hot mic. Oh, yes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming out here tonight. My name is Tiffany, and I'm the marketing and event coordinator here at Books Are Magic. We are so excited to have Paul Tremblay and Adam Gidwitz here with us tonight to celebrate another. But before we get started, I wanted to point out some logistics for how tonight's event is going to go. If you need to use a restroom at any point, the door is located right next to the Moleskine spinner on the right side of the room. We'll be doing hand-raised audience Q&A toward the end of the discussion, so start thinking of questions to ask and hold on to them tight. After the talk tonight, Paul will be signing and personalizing books at the table next to where you checked in. We'll let you know where and when to line up for that. If you're joining us virtually on the YouTube live stream, we'd love to encourage you to buy a copy of Another online using the link in the live stream description. Another. Paul is a master of crafting unsettling stories, no matter what the intended age group, and this one is no exception. From the moment Casey's parents bring home an old telephone, the dread starts to build. The phone's arrival sets off a chilling chain of events. A mysterious man appears, followed by a mannequin-like friend who begins hanging around their son. What unfolds is a total nightmare. Paul doesn't just deliver a terrifying tale rooted in our deepest fears, he also captures the anxiety and unease of the early pandemic years with uncanny precision. As a teacher during that time, I was a teacher prior to this, I felt seen in these pages. He taps into the emotional landscape of those long, uncertain days in a way that really stuck with me, reflecting not just like my own experience, but what I saw in my students too. And on top of all that, there are some incredibly weird, wonderful elements, strange plants, fungus, eerie little details woven in that I really loved. Paul Tremblay has won the Bram Stoker British Fantasy Sheridan Le Fanu and Massachusetts Book Awards, and is the New York Times bestselling author of Horror Movie, The Beast You Are, The Pallbearers Club, Survivor Song, Growing Things and Other Stories, Disappearance at Devil's Rock, A Head Full of Ghosts, and the crime novels The Little Sleep and No Sleep Till Wonderland. His novel, The Cabin at the End of the World, was adapted into the Universal Pictures film Knock at the Cabin.
Sorry.
His essays and short fiction have appeared in the New York Times, Boston Globe, Los Angeles Times, and numerous years' best anthologies. He lives outside of Boston, Massachusetts with his family and has a master's degree in mathematics. Adam Gidwitz was a teacher for 8 years. He told countless stories to his students who then demanded he write his first book, A Tale Dark and Grim. Adam has since written 2 companion novels in A Glass Grimly and The Grim Conclusion. He is the author of The Inquisitor's Tale, which won the Newbery Honor, and the Unicorn Rescue Society series. Adam still tells creepy, funny fairy tales live to kids on his podcast, Grimace?
Yes.
Thank God.
Yeah, you got it.
And at schools around the world. He lives in Brooklyn with his wife, daughter, and dog Lucy Goosey. That's a great name.
Lucy Goosey. Yeah,
Wow.
she's great.
So without any further delay, please join me in giving the warmest welcome to Paul and Adam.
Do the mics, are they for the, you like mic? We do mic, okay. Paul, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you everybody for coming. It's a great turnout. Do you want to start by reading a little bit of Another?
Sure.
You want to start that way?
I'll read a small section, even though Grady threatened me with I'll start pulling books off the shelves if you read. But I'm going to read anyway. It's very short. And the part I'm going to read is the initial what if that started this book. It was the images that you'll hear in this section was what I couldn't stop thinking about until I started writing about it, I guess. It'll take me a second. It's the 4th chapter. Here we go. I told you it'll be short though, 5 minutes. Casey was upstairs in his room at 3 p.m. when the doorbell rang. He got that funny stomach-dropping feeling, and his heart beat harder and faster as though it was trying to pull his stomach back up into place. Mom called up the stairwell. "Casey, I think your friend is here." Dad left his makeshift office before Casey left his bedroom, so Casey hung back. He didn't know why both parents were answering the door, and he was embarrassed that they were doing so. They were clearly so happy and desperate for him to have a friend over again. Casey stood in his doorway and listened to Dad clomp down the stairs as the front door clicked open. Mom said, "Hello?" as though the word hello was a question and not a cheerful greeting. Someone else made a grunting sound, like they were working hard, and something heavy landed on the floor. Dad said in an almost angry way, "What is that? Can you leave it outside?" "I do apologize. It gets so dusty where I work," said a man. His voice was deep, smooth, confident. Casey left his room and walked down the short hallway to the stairs that overlooked the entranceway. The front door was wide open. A short white man was inside the house and standing next to a large, lumpy, light brown burlap bag, the top of which was cinched closed with thick yellow rope. It looked like a giant potato sack, the kind that they had at the local farm. It was half as tall as the man. It was patched with gray Durst. Fred Durst? Gray dirt or dust. I just made up a new word, Durst. Or maybe even ash from a fire pit. Dad kept asking that the man leave the bag outside. The man muttered apologies, but with a lilt in his voice, like he was almost laughing. He was bent over, untying the sack's knotted rope, his face partially hidden by his gray flat cap, and the turned-up collar of his black winter wool coat. The man suddenly stood, cupped his hand around his mouth, and blew on them like they were cold. Some of that gray dust ash from the sack plumed into the air and into Mom and Dad's faces. They coughed. I got the wrong hands going here. And sneezed. Some of that dust even floated up to the second floor and tickled Casey's nose. The man apologized and offered a dirty handkerchief. Mom and Dad declined. Now that the man was standing again, his face was visible. His blue eyes crowded a thin nose perched atop a wide smile. Casey wandered halfway down the staircase onto a landing. "Hello there, young man," the man said. "You must be..." He paused, but his pause was more like he was frozen. Mom and Dad turned to look at Casey as they absently wiped their eyes. Dad still had a flake of that gray dust on the side of his nose. His parents blinked and for a moment looked confused, like they didn't know who Casey was. They shared a silent stare that was too long, especially with that strange man standing there. Casey's eyebrow twitched under the weight of their stares, and he was about to cry out, "Why are you staring at me?" Mom finally said, Casey, come on downstairs and say hi to our guest." She sounded oddly formal, like when she talked to his teachers or doctors. "Great, now that everyone's here," the man said, and pointed at the sack. The sack twitched. There was something moving inside it. Dad jumped away, then laughed nervously, wiped his face again, and shared a dopey smile with Mom. There's something wrong with Dad, Casey thought. But that thought was quickly forgotten and buried by the weirdness of what was moving around inside the bag. He walked down the rest of the stairs and stood between his parents. The burlap sack bowed out and stretched, rippled with interior movement. Then a hand poked up through the top. A human hand, a kid's hand, with short, stubby fingers. Then there was a second hand. They clapped together at once and waved. The adults giggled at the showmanship. The sack collapsed, dropped to the floor like a falling curtain, and pulled around the ankles of the figure that had been inside of it. And it was a boy. Or it was shaped like a boy. It looked like a living mannequin dressed in an orange and white striped button-down short-sleeve shirt, jeans, and an army green baseball hat on his head. His skin was the pinkish color of silly putty or Play-Doh. The mannequin boy's face had outlines of facial features, a ridge but no nostrils, where the nose was supposed to be, slight bumps for lips, and eyes that were sunken, shadowed pockets between the brow and cheekbones. The man said, "Everyone, say hello to Moral." Mom and Dad said hello enthusiastically. Dad extended his arm and shook hands with Moral. Casey asked, "Is he wearing a costume?" The man laughed, and Moral mimed laughter, but no sound came out of him. The man said, "Moral is your new friend, Casey." He gave Casey a look that was difficult to read. At first, it was a pitying look his teachers gave him sometimes, but then, with a sly smirk tugging up a corner of his mouth, the look was a hungry one, a bully's look. Moral stepped to his left, and the man bent and scooped up the burlap sack. He said, "Well, have fun, boys. I'll be back in a few days, or a week. You'll have all the time you need." The man winked at Casey. It was a terrible, awful wink. Dad said, "Great, I'm sure these two will get along fine." Casey almost shouted, "What?" at his father. He was sure Dad would protest and say that Moral, whoever or whatever he was, could only stay here for today, maybe one overnight stay, but not a week. Casey was so stunned and so unsure of himself, he didn't know what to say. Mom shook her head as though clearing the cobwebs and seemed to come back to herself briefly. She said, "Oh, that's quite a long time. Does Moral have any allergies or dietary restrictions we need to know about?" The man said, "No food." Mom didn't react to his odd answer, not outwardly. She said, "Oh, okay, this is great. Moral can stay in Casey's sister's room. She's at college." The man said, "No bed." Mom said, "Yes." Dad said, "Of course." The man tipped his flat cap, clouding more of that dust into the air, then walked backward outside, pulling the front door closed behind him.
Well, that just took me back to all the sleepless nights I spent reading this book. It is delicious and disturbing
Thank you.
and just excellently done. So you'll all enjoy it in that weird way that we enjoy horror novels. That we're like, am I enjoying this? Why am I still reading this? But yes, in the end, you do enjoy it. Okay, before we get back to the book, though, I want to sort of move backwards in time.
Sure.
Casey is 12.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you were like when you were 12?
Oh boy.
I didn't prepare him, so
Yeah,
I'm gonna vamp a little bit while he thinks about this.
I mean, so when I was 12, I was very short. Like I didn't get tall until much later. Like I was a late, the quote unquote late bloomer. I also had scoliosis, so like physically my spine was curved. So, but prior to that, I was just a very small, skinny kid, like a walking marionette puppet kind of thing. So 12 was sort of right before maybe I discovered Def Leppard. But yeah, just like, awkward, not very confident, super shy.
What kinds of things did you do for like in your free time?
So as a child of the 80s, like cable TV came to my neighborhood like very early. So there was just like a lot of watching of bad movies on HBO, the same movies that played over and over again.
Yeah.
I had siblings that I was close with, even though my brother was like 5 years younger. We would, play like wiffle ball and stuff like that.
Yeah, and with your friends?
Honestly, I didn't have a ton of friends. I don't want to bum people out, but like, yeah, I was.
I wasn't trying to push you there, but now I'm sorry that I've done that. Yeah.
No, like, I mean, I was super awkward, and it's funny. Like maybe when I was a little older, I played a lot more with my brother and his friends because they would always come over, and then because I was a little older, I could do well in the sports that we played as opposed to playing with the kids that were my age because it wouldn't have gone as well. Yeah, it was weird. I had a super close family life, but didn't have like a lot of friends.
Yeah. And it's so impossible. Like I have a 9-year-old. Your kids are older, so it's maybe getting less impossible to predict what they're going to do with their weird mix of talents and deficits that they all have, right? Like I don't know where this goes, but when you look back in the other direction, it always seems so predictable, right? When I look back at myself in that age, I was playing with a lot of G.I. Joes and making up tons of stories for hours at a time. And so now it's obvious that I would become a writer, but from the other perspective, it could have gone in a lot of different directions. If you look backwards, what were the clues maybe that like young Paul would turn into author Paul? Yeah,
I mean, definitely. I'm sure like everybody out here, but just a very vivid daydream fantasy life. Like if I was shooting hoops in the backyard by myself, like it was creating all these scenarios for myself.
Yeah, me too.
When I discovered music, right around that age, when I really started getting into music, countless hours spent laying on the floor with the big giant speakers tented over my head, which might explain some of my hearing deficits now. And I still listen to music as a kid. Like I imagine myself on stage performing, which is kind of weird, but like all the time, that was my favorite music. It had to be something that I could think, oh, I'd be cool if I was up doing that kind of thing.
And then when did the writing stuff start for you?
So much later than I'm sure every writer in this room. I didn't start messing around with writing until like I was 24, 25. I mean, I was a math major in college, although I ended up weirdly taking math humanities. It's a long, boring story. Like I screwed up the education part of it. But my last class, the senior year of college.
What is math humanities?
A double major.
Math
and humanities was just a hodgepodge of liberal arts, like philosophy, history. And then one of the last classes I took was like a Lit 101. But I had like the stereotype of like the magical like English teacher experience. The teacher was really cool. He was into punk music. He loved the Dead Boys. He let me write obnoxious papers comparing Joyce Carol Oates stories to Jane's Addiction songs. So I mean, I was really, he really sort of opened up my eyes. Like, oh, I didn't know people read stuff like this or did stuff like this.
And then, but that's reading literature.
Yeah.
Right? When does it become creative for yourself?
So when I went off to grad school right after that, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, bought me The Stand. When I went off to grad school, we did the long distance relationship thing. So for 2 years, I just read all the King, and through King, I found like Shirley Jackson and Clive Barker. And after 2 years, I had a weird itch to try writing a story. I mean, at the same time, I was trying to learn how to play guitar. And honestly, I've said this before. I'm sorry for repeating myself for some people in this room, but if I had a time machine and was given a choice, I would probably still choose a half decent punk rock musician over a writer. But unfortunately, I was better at writing than music, so I just started messing around with the writing.
Yeah, that's cool. And then how does messing around with writing get to being published?
I mean, I just I was really patient with it. I mean, so I didn't start messing like in the middle to late 90s. Writing was very much a hobby. And so I was like playing guitar, and I had a 4-track, and I was trying to record stuff. But when I first started selling short stories in the early 2000s, I was like, oh, maybe. That was right around when my first son was born. It was that weirdly, even though there was less time, that sort of kicked the want to create into overdrive. And so many, even most of my adult stuff centers around kids and parents.
Yeah.
I'm proud that like I never really, I don't feel like I stole from like their time. Like it was always, I would steal from school. Like as a teacher, if I had a free period, I was working on a story. If the kids were taking a quiz, I was working on my writing.
Wow.
I was better at that then than I am now. But
do you think that like the birth of the kid, like one of the things that I love about this book, your other books, there is and I think this is true in a lot of horror stories, that it feels like not necessarily a metaphor, that's too simplistic, but there are other emotions, realistic anxieties and emotions that are going on in your life that then you embody, right? Like my favorite example of this is like Godzilla as an embodiment of fear of nuclear bombs in Japan, right? Like I love that. So do you think then that like the parenting anxieties particularly spawn the scary stories?
Oh, for sure. It's funny, my wife went in the total opposite direction. I understand. I mean, she was the one that introduced me to Stephen King. She read him as a teenager. But when we had kids, she went through like 10 years where she couldn't look at anything scary at all. And I was the total opposite. Like I was reading and watching and writing things where kids were in danger, because obviously I just had to try to deal with those anxieties in that way.
Yeah.
She came back. She loved like Walking Dead. She watched that way longer than I did.
Yeah. There is something, I don't know, cathartic about like living through the worst thing that can happen in fiction.
Yeah.
Right?
I think what I keep coming back to is like in my own characters, I want to know what they're going to do. Like when they're faced with this, I want to see what they do. I want to see what sort of decisions they make.
Yeah.
And I'm just endlessly fascinated with that aspect of, I think all storytelling, but horror in particular.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you more about that in particular. We'll circle back to another, I promise. But I'm not a big horror person. My first books are scary fairy tales, and they are quite scary. But horror is different than scary, right? You know, my fairy tales start once upon a time and end happily ever after, and you know what that arc is going to be. And horror has a different arc, I think. So I'm curious about that. Like, you know, many of us are familiar with like the, you know, a movie structure or Save the Cat structure. Does horror have that same structure, or does it build in a different way? And then I want to get back to the sort of emotional stuff.
Geez, I've never really thought of it like on the structure side of it, but because I tend to think of, and I think hopefully a lot of horror writers in here that are here, I see them, I see you, would agree that
they're in the building.
There's so many different ways to do a horror story.
Yeah.
The ones I tend to gravitate to don't necessarily have like a happy ending, but I still weirdly find that hopeful. And the reason why is I think it goes back to the punk music thing too, is like the idea of feeling seen, or, like if I watch a movie or a book that I really connect with, even if it's like about horrible stuff, I feel less alone, because like, they feel the same way, or they recognize the same things I recognize. And that, like I said, I feel I take comfort in that just hopeful act of communication between, you know, writer and reader, filmmaker and viewer.
Yeah, so that if you leave somebody at the end with a devastating ending, which is, I think, easier to do for adults than for kids.
Sure.
And we don't want to give away the ending, but like kids can read this and they will read more books afterwards. It will be okay. You feel like there is a catharsis, a hopefulness, or some sort of, even if the ending is devastating, because of the connection that you're making between 100%. Yourself and the reader.
Yeah, there's an honesty. That honesty of communication to me is a hopeful act.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as somebody who taught and then writes books for young people, I think I've always thought like my most recent, the Max books end on like a, you know, hard to tell whether that's a happy ending or not. And some of the kids feel like betrayed. They're like, will there be another book? Like, I have to make sure that everybody's happy at the end. And not everybody, but I had a couple of responses that way. So it's cool to think of, I mean, I'm just reflecting on it. It's cool to think of just the experience of communicating and connecting over a piece of fiction is in and of itself a happy ending, even if the ending itself.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet some of those readers will have that reaction, but we'll still go back and reread the first two, even though maybe they don't know, because of course that's a very human reaction to want these characters that you care about to for them to work out well.
Yeah.
So this might seem like a little strange, but Watership Down is one of my favorite movies. And it's one of the few things I saw as a kid that didn't scar me because I was such a scaredy cat as a kid. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not just saying that to say that. Slept with stuffed animals around my head. I had 8. There was a rotation. One got attention. The other 7 were around my head. I still, as an adult, if I'm the only one in the house, there's a light on in the room that I'm sleeping in until someone comes home. But, I know Watership Down, including my own son. I showed it to him too early. I'm sorry, Cole. But when I saw it, it didn't scar me because I felt like, there's horrible stuff happening in that, but it's also beautiful. And I felt like for the first time, and I remember thinking this as a child, I was like 8. I felt like for the first time I saw, someone allowed me to see the secret, like, adult truths of the world. Yeah. And I felt like actually weirdly empowered by that.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay. Can we, I'm going to go back to like the structure thing, which you said you haven't thought about. So let's just stay there for a while.
Sure.
I'm often thinking in a structure, right? Like I got to meet the characters, which we do in your books. We have a setting, we understand the setting, and then we introduce a problem. There's a catalyst, an inciting incident, however you want to say it. And that all seems to hold. And then I expect to see, like a mix of what I call like challenges and growth, right? Tough things happen to the characters, and then the characters find ways to overcome them, and it builds, and then often there's a midpoint where they think they've achieved what they want, and then everything changes, and then bad guys close in, it gets harder and worse till the point where it's all is lost, and then boom, they succeed, right? There's this arc that I think we've come to expect in much of our media. But in reading your books, they don't really follow that. Though some of those points are there, there's this long, slow build from after the problem is introduced to pretty much the all is lost, where it's like, oh my God, how is this going to get any better? and you're really feeling a lot of tension. So I'm just curious, do you outline? How do you think about that structure? Points you want to hit at all?
Yeah. Well, part of it is I don't know what I'm doing. I wasn't an English major, but like I wrote this in an essay recently. Like I say that mostly jokingly, but like I believe what I'm doing with all my heart. Yeah. So whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. Like because I don't try to force things into what's called the story structure. Especially, I think my Hollywood experience too is really sort of ingrained to do that.
Not everything. It sounds like you had a great experience based on what you did earlier.
Not everything has to be 3 acts. Like, have you ever seen an Asian horror movie or a European one? Like, how about the story is just a good story? And typically, what I default to, I think, is where it leads me is, even though like there's something really supernatural happening in this book, it's not ambiguous. It's actually happening for some of those people out there. I try to treat it as realistically as possible, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I want it to, like, if this is happening, this is what would happen. And I really just kind of follow that. Maybe it's a math way of thinking, but I try to really follow like that logic path.
Yeah.
So I didn't outline this one. I have outlined others. I definitely plot is like my weak point. A lot of my early novels I did plot, but this one I didn't. And it was kind of fun to write that way. Like I had a general idea of where I wanted to go, and there were a lot of like surprises, especially the moral character. Sort of like I didn't anticipate where he was going to go or where he went without getting too spoilery.
I want to get to the book now, but I will just like praise you by saying that it now that you describe it that way, it feels that way in the book where it evolves very naturally. It does feel like, okay, here's the scenario. This is exactly what they would all do in the scenario. And Moral in particular and his development really surprised me, which maybe had you plotted it out wouldn't have happened. Like the evolution was both organic, believable, and also surprising. So could you tell us a little bit more about another, like, you want to talk any more about the premise? You kind of gave us the premise, where it came from.
Sure. So like that scene I read of the clay boy, and the next page, like he's sculpting a smile on his face, which is, there's some people some people close to my age out there. Have you ever seen Mummenschanz, like the Swedish performance troupe? Yeah. On the Muppet Show. And this was on YouTube. I was so happy it was still there. They do all sorts of stuff, but one of their acts was they would be in black leotards and just a big giant lump of clay on their heads, and they would mold stuff. It was really creepy. And when you watch it, like you hear the Muppet Show like canned laughter and stuff. I was like, no, this is creepy.
Why are you laughing?
Yeah. So obviously I think that came from the sort of like the kinda scared of that.
Yeah.
But once I had the idea, I was like, okay, and it kept coming at me. I was like, okay, I should try to do something with this. And the first thing I had to figure out was like, well, why would Casey and his parents accept, this strange clay being and the old man dropping him off kind of thing? And I definitely was not anticipating that it was going to be set during the pandemic or during basically spring of 2021 is where it mostly takes place. And that was like another discovery. It's like I didn't know I needed to write about my years teaching at that time as much as I did. Because honestly, like I wrote a book called Survivor Song, an adult book. And I joked for a long time. It's like I was very lucky that I wrote my pandemic book before the pandemic happened, because it was about like an outbreak of a virus and weird stuff that happened in 2020. So, but anyway, once why was Casey feeling so alone and isolated? I was like, oh, it's during the pandemic. It's hybrid learning. It's some cyberbullying. So like that part started clicking in. Pretty quickly for the background of it. Yeah.
And then this weird boy being dropped off and the way that he changes. Can you talk about where that comes from? Do we know?
I mean, for some of you, again, of an age, like, it's certainly a little bit of a riff on like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers kind of idea. I'm thinking the black and white Kevin McCarthy one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's sort of how I described the book initially to people when I was pitching it.
There is at the beginning of this book a great telephone. It's like a rotary telephone that is taupe colored, and it ends up being really important in the book. And the way you want to read
I'm just gonna get the picture. Keep talking. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, and then you can tell us about the pictures. And
a rotary phone. I don't know, kids, if you've ever seen one of those.
And you describe it sitting there looking like a mushroom, and I was like, oh my god, what a great description of that phone. And then things evolve from there in a very
The fun part with the phone was like when I first put it in, I don't think I knew at the time how important it was going to become to the story. But one of the fun challenges was like, how am I going to describe a rotary phone to readers that have never seen one? And there's actually a lot of fun YouTube videos of me and parents putting like a rotary phone in front of the children and seeing how long it takes them to make a phone call.
That's great. Yeah. And now I'm just thinking about that, and I forgot what I was about to ask you. I'm just thinking about mean parents making them dial. Right. The phone is uncanny. And one of the things that you really excel at in general is just that like things are slightly off in a way that is uncanny. Do you walk through your life being like, if that were just slightly different, I would be freaking out right now? Where does the uncanny instinct come from?
Yeah. Just a lifelong scaredy cat. Like, in the Avengers, when the Hulk says the secret is he's always angry, is I'm always afraid. So, yeah.
I like that. Okay. That's cool. All right. So you are a teacher of mathematics.
I am.
9th through 12th?
That's the scary stuff. Yeah.
I am a former teacher of mathematics. I taught 2nd grade. What is this is the one question I did preview. What is your favorite concept in math, either to teach or just to think about?
I mean, I was going to pick all of calculus.
And now make us care about
the fundamental theorem of calculus. I'm not going to be able to make you care about it.
Okay.
But the fundamental theorem of calculus takes the derivative and it takes the integral and it shows that they're actually like their relationship is what addition to subtraction is. And it's just wild because how they both start from such different places. Anyway, sorry.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't do calculus, and I taught math. And I didn't do calculus. Yeah. My favorite was the big law of large numbers. With 2nd graders, we flipped a bunch of quarters and we graphed and saw how close it got to being exactly 50-50 heads and tails. And we had this one little genius in the class, and he was watching it go, and he was going to go last. And I am sure in retrospect that he cheated because he ended up getting like 16 heads or something.
Yeah.
And it put us at exactly 100 heads and 100 tails, which that shouldn't happen, right? The law of large numbers shouldn't work out that well. But it didn't occur to me that he was cheating in the moment. And the class just erupted, screaming.
Yeah, he was the hero.
He was the hero. And somebody came and they were like, everyone okay. And that was the law of large numbers was that was my favorite. But calculus, okay. Writing routine. How do you fit it in with teaching? How do you make that possible?
I mean, I didn't start writing until I started teaching. So like they've always been, intertwined. So
What does it look like for you? What's your writing routine in
Well,
the
now
school
that-
year and in the
yeah,
summer?
now that my kids are older and they're 24 and 20. I'm writing mostly at night if I'm teaching during the day. But again, if I can steal a free period, I'll try to use it where I can. So, I mean, in some ways, it's been a great lesson in time management. Just trying to, I don't have the luxury of having like writer's rituals. It's like, I've got 45 minutes. I'm going to sit down and just go.
Yeah. Is it different over the summer?
Yeah, over the summer, I prefer to get up in the morning, especially at my advancing age. I like writing in the morning better than at night.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And is there like certain things that you save for the summers? You're like, okay, I'm going to draft in the summer and revise in the school year, or no?
I'm not. My agent's gonna be like, "Yep." I'm not really like a drafter reviser.
Wow. How do you feel about that, Steven?
Yeah. I do a ton of editing as I go. Again, maybe it's not a math thing, but I wish I was someone who could just spill it out and then rewrite it. If I'm going good, I get like 500 words a day, and then the next day, not only will I re-go over those 500, if it's a novel, I'll go back to the start of the chapter.
Yeah.
So I go forward so slowly, and sometimes it feels like I'm never getting anywhere.
Yeah.
But eventually, I just slowly do make my way to the end. So I mean, I still have to revise, obviously, when I have. He's nodding his head again. I still have to revise when I have a full draft, but the full draft is somewhat clean-ish. I mean,
Yeah.
cleaner than it would be if I just sat. It's just the way I work. I just can't do it any other way.
Yeah, that's exactly what I recommend people who are starting off not do.
Yeah.
Not because it's bad, but just because they never finish their books, right? They're like, just get stuck on this chapter 4 isn't good, chapter 5 isn't good. And so, in fact, another one of your clients, Laura Amy Schlitz, she had started drafting by handwriting as fast as possible to just get to the very end of the book, no matter what it was, and then to go back and slowly type it up and revise at that stage. And that's been helping me recently, just because, especially when you're typing, I imagine you're typing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks so good. It looks like it is a finished book. So then you have to work so hard to make it a finished one. But
my handwriting's so bad. I wish I could do the longhand thing.
Yeah.
My good friend John Langan always writes it out longhand first, and probably very grammatically correct just from the start, and then he types it up.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm curious about the relationship between teaching and writing. I certainly felt as a teacher, you have like an internal clock in your head. You know how long the period is. You know how long their attention spans are.
Right.
And so you're kind of like, you have to keep your story or your lesson, on their schedule, attention wise. And then I felt like that was super helpful in writing, to know when am I going to lose them and what do I have to do? When do I have to end the chapter? When do I have to change this beat in order to keep their attention? What relations do you see between writing and teaching?
Man, that's great. I think I'm going to use that from now on. But
Cool.
I can't use it right now, though. For me, I feel like it's more, I would say utilitarian. It's just more like it keeps me in touch with young people. It's as you know, I'm sure it's a great lesson in voice.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch the slang change every 5 years. And I teach in a small school, so there's a lot of there's sort of Northeast specific. Now with social media, there's obviously youth culture specific, but we even get school specific things, and it's just fun to see it change, and obviously embarrass them when you say no cap or something like that.
Is that a phrase that's no longer cool?
I think no cap is older now. Yeah.
Okay, I missed it entirely. What does it mean?
You did.
What did it mean?
It means it's sort of a negative connotation. If you, I'm not even sure, honestly.
Wait, can you raise your hand if you know no cap? Have you heard no cap before?
Yeah. He's got
3
children,
people. I don't feel so bad anymore. Thank you all. 4. Okay. The kids know. They know.
The kids know. Yeah.
It's a bad thing.
Robert, help us, or someone.
Like no lie.
Yeah, just no lie. Okay. Yeah. For real.
For real. No cap. Wow. I will make sure not to use it now because I will sound hopelessly
No, because
outdated.
part of the fun is I'll purposely use their words incorrectly. So I don't have to know what it means.
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah. Embarrassing them is one of the most fun things about being a teacher.
For sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. Totally agree. Okay. So, slight spoiler. One of the things that helps Casey in another is drawing.
Yes.
Helps clarify his thinking in a way that he desperately needs. Do you feel like writing, making art, it does that for you?
Yeah, for sure. And that was like another sort of fun part about the book. It was also just sort of almost a way of verbalizing how important art is to everybody, not just Casey. And like, it's anti-AI stuff snuck in there too.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't necessarily anticipating, but it made sense because 2023 was when I first joined a lawsuit suing OpenAI.
How's that going? Are we winning?
No, no, I don't think we are. In fact, I think Trump's very close to doing like you said, someone told me today, like he did a whole bunch of AI, like executive orders.
Oh,
so we'll see.
Okay.
Anyway, we're not trying to bum everybody out. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. I mean, my daughter is a visual artist. My son went to school and he was a music production major, so they're very artsy kids. And so I put a lot of them into this book, in sort of fun, different ways. And so some of my own anxieties of what's their sort of artistic future, what's everyone's artistic future is going to look like. But I actually do remain hopeful because the stuff that they do and their friends do is really cool, and it's it's inspiring, and hopefully Casey, what he does with his art ultimately is inspiring, not only for like him to hold on to who he is, which if nothing else, that's the important part about art is the doing of it. That's what the terrible people don't understand is it's not the final product necessarily. It's the work. It's how you got from there to this finished piece that you have. That's the good stuff. That's what's valuable.
Yeah, well said. Also, you mentioned this. Your kids, the sibling relationship in this book is deeply satisfying because it feels so real. It's like a really well executed sibling relationship. I wanted a big sister like Allie.
Yeah,
right?
I think we all do.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's good. So, delicate question.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to ask the question, and then I'm going to tell you why it's delicate to give you some time to not put your foot in your mouth.
Okay.
Is everyone nervous yet?
Yeah.
Good, excellent.
I'm thinking about Durst again. Dirt. And, yeah.
So the question seems innocuous. Talk a little bit about the difference of writing for adults and for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that it's delicate is because I once heard an author speak. I will not say who this author was, an adult writer. Somebody said, why don't you write, do you ever consider writing for kids? And she said, I would need a lobotomy to do that.
Whoa.
Furthermore, a few years later, she wrote a children's book. So I was going to give her a lobotomy unasked for, but I guess she got it already without me doing it.
Right.
So don't say that.
I will not.
Okay. But what do you think? Is there a difference?
For me, there wasn't. Like, I was going to say sort of the exact opposite. Again, remember, I don't know what I'm doing. I just believe in what I'm trying to do. And honestly, sometimes, like, I'm just going to try to do it and let Stephen and my talented editors figure out what to do with it. Like, I mean, I didn't know initially, but I felt pretty early on. I was like, yeah, maybe this is middle grade because it's 12-year-old.
Yeah.
But because I'm not steeped in it, I thought the only way I could do it was to write it like an adult book. And so what that meant to me was like try to make it feel as realistic as possible, even though there's weird stuff happening, but also treat the characters and the readers with respect, respecting their intelligence, what they're going to feel emotionally, etc. I mean, even though I've written a lot of, it's been all adult novels, I have had a ton of kid characters, so that didn't feel totally out of left field. I just knew that based on the story's needs that there wasn't any violence. And it wasn't because I was writing middle grade. It was because the story didn't need violence. So I feel like I just got lucky with the idea that it sort of hopefully wormed into the place I was trying to go.
Yeah, it does. It works there. So do we know, will there be more? I mean, this could have a sequel. Do you want more kids books? Or, do you know what's next in general?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I certainly would love to. I just don't know like when that would be. I mean, I have a contract for 3 adult books. I just turned in one.
Okay, yeah. Can you tell us anything about it? Are you allowed?
Yeah, I will. What else was I going to say?
Kids books.
Kids books, yeah. No, I would certainly be open to it, especially, if I get more time. I'm hoping to quit teaching in the next, maybe after this year. When my daughter's almost finished with college, then I would have more time.
Yeah.
But no, it's been a wonderful experience. My editor, Rosemary, was amazing. That's been a great
She seems to want more because she started nodding vigorously when I said are there more.
I know. So the hard part for me is like I've never been a series writer. So even though it's not a spoiler, I mean, but there's almost like a post ending where it leaves open maybe there could be another story. But I have no idea what that story is.
Yeah.
And part of the problem is I don't know about you, but I don't have like a bullpen of ideas waiting for me.
Yeah.
Like it's a little bit terrifying. I go from book to book. Like I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like I finish a book and I'm like, oh, what's next? I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I would love to say I know, but I don't know what's next.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a new adult.
Tell us about that one.
So the new one is called, well, it's going to be out next year, hopefully. It's called Dead But Dreaming of Electric Sheep. So riffing on, Philip K. Dick title.
Yeah.
And I hope it's a little bit, I hope a lot of it's funny, but I hope a lot of it's sort of disturbing as well. The main conceit is that there's someone who's my age working for Google, but not Google. Oh, we're being recorded. Shoot. Not Google at all.
Yeah.
I call him Decillion or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's working.
That was smooth. Don't worry. No one's going to.
And this sort of happens off the page, but he's working for them, has a major, like a catastrophic stroke on their campus. Doesn't die, but is in a vegetative state. But he signed his body away to them. And so they put AI and nanotechnology into his brain so someone can remote control him like a video game.
Wow.
And so half the book is this woman who's just out of college, 24, and a former professional gamer is hired to basically Weekend at Bernie's him. Sorry for the old reference.
That's great.
Across the country.
Is it equally funny as Weekend at Bernie's was to me when I was a kid?
I hope it
boy,
is.
That movie killed me.
Parts of it. So I kind of want that part to be humorous, but with pathos, obviously. The other half of the book is our poor person is in fact conscious and is going through like a phantasmagorical, horrible time, shall we say. So the book sort of bounces back and forth between those two perspectives.
Sounds great. Sounds exciting.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm in the middle of edits right now, so I don't know how I feel about it. No, I'm feeling good.
We endorse.
Yeah.
All right. I asked a bazillion questions, but you probably have a few. So any questions? Yes, let's go.
It's wonderful to have you here with us, and your book horror movie made a really deep impression on me, and just stunning achievement in so many ways. But I guess the simple question I'll ask you in relation to that book is, that book struck me as the work of someone who's a deep and passionate fan of horror fiction, but also horror films.
Yeah.
And you haven't talked that much about films as reference points in this conversation. And I was just curious if you had experiences, especially growing up, where you watched particular films that you feel kind of stayed with you in a dramatic way.
Oh, for sure. First, thank you. Yeah, it's just this book. I don't think any, there were no film references that I could think of other than Moment Shots, which was TV.
We got that.
Yeah. Oh no, movies for sure. I mean, for me, I kind of had to. My first 20 years, what I knew of horror was almost exclusively moving images, TV, or movies on cable television. So when I first started messing around with writing, like I had to take a crash course in what is what is the structure of story in literature, and that's something that continues to drive me because I feel like I'm still playing catch up. I mean, for 30 years now, man, I'm old. I probably read like 70 to 80 books a year, but part of this I feel like I'm always playing catch up because I know that big film sort of backup is still there. And the fun part is I read way more books than I watch movies now. If you had told me when I was like 20 that was going to happen, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. So no, the film, that stuff is there. It's like the formative stuff for me mostly.
Can you name some?
Oh, I mean, on my, let's see, I got Jaws, The Thing, the original Godzilla. My midlife crisis has been tattoos. But it's my daughter's fault because she's an amateur tattooist, and I took her for her first one, and that's how I got started.
Did she do these?
She did this one.
All right.
She drew this for my book, The Pallbearers Club. That was my first tattoo.
Cool.
When I got it, she said, "That looks terrible. Why did you get it?" I'm like, "Thank you." But no, she's great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
How did having a kid affect your writing? Did it give you incentive to write more, or did it make it harder?
I mean, at their ages, it was harder. Like when they were super busy. Like I don't even know how I got books written when like the kids were older and Cole was going to like baseball things, and I had to take him there and sometimes coach and then coach at school but found time again without hopefully doing it when everyone else was asleep or if I was at school. I was taking. I was an okay teacher. No, I'm a good teacher. The weird part was for almost, I would say like 8 or 9 years, so like almost to 2010, I had a friend say to me, he's like, "You write a lot about kids." I was like, "I do?" Like I had no idea. Like I never like stepped back to notice like, oh, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So by the time I wrote a book that did well, because I wrote a bunch that didn't, the one that sort of broke me out was called A Head Full of Ghosts. By that time, I realized, oh yeah, I like writing about kids, and I'm probably okay at it. So, let's keep doing it. But for me, it's always, because I've always been a teacher, like I joke, but it's also true. I've never left the kids' calendar. Every June, I'm so excited that school's over. Every August, the Sunday of months, I'm really bummed out. I get so excited for snow days. So I feel like that's sort of kept me connected to the emotional lives of kids too. And and I'd be honest to say that I do fear a little bit losing that, if and when I quit teaching.
Yeah, that was tough actually.
We talked about your writing habits, but you mentioned you're a very prolific reader. Can you talk a little bit about your reading habits? How do you read 70 to 80 books a year while also teaching, writing, driving around?
I do some audiobooks if I'm walking or driving. Just whenever I have free. So I don't watch a lot of TV. That's the big sort of sacrifice, I guess, is I've never, at dinner, my friends were talking about like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And I was like, I've never seen those. I see things here and there, but The Dream, I don't know how you feel, but like there's that like dark, destructive fantasy. It's like you could just sit on the couch and watch everything. You don't have to write. You can do this thing, or you don't have to read. So for me, like I'm compelled to read. I love reading. Reading I've discovered is part of who I am. And that was like another pandemic discovery. Like everybody else when the first weeks happened, it was, just terrified. And I was like I had this weird, and you interviewed me about it, this weird sort of zombie book about to come out. And people would be like, oh, you must be ready for this. I'm like, no, I was in a fetal position watching Animal Planet for 2 weeks straight. But what broke me out was I reread Peter Straub's The Throat, which is not like a happy, fun feels book. But when I reread it, I was like, oh, I have to do this. I have to read. This is part of who I am. I had to get that back. So so I always read before I go to bed, and, just try to read whenever I can.
In the Shirley Jackson homage short story, and you also mentioned it in the end notes that you're afraid of this, there's a strawberry and a tomato. Is it a smooth strawberry or is it a tomato with seeds on the outside?
It's eldritch. It's too horrible to describe. It's funny. Someone mentioned Bentley Little to me last night. I did my hometown event, and there's a story by Bentley Little called The Theater. It's such a weird story. Someone goes upstairs and are they like vegetables grading or something? It's like a weird yams. It's like, I've never been so afraid of yams in my life. So I kind of wanted to try to like make a tomato, not a yam, but something like that, just weird. And as a picky eater as a child, like I didn't eat vegetables until I was an adult. So maybe tapped into that too.
Yeah, that fear. So you just stare at the dinner table. You're just staring at the vegetables, imagining how they could be scarier, right?
Yeah.
It's that uncanny thing you're doing. Yeah.
Maybe my next middle grade book will be a pickle book or an anti-pickle book.
Could you maybe speak more to the scary plants in all your stories?
Oh yeah, I guess I have growing things. So just a tale of like an apocalyptic just overgrowth of everything. Although it's played as ambiguous a little bit because the story is told from these two sisters who are in like a house by themselves. So is it really happening? Is it not really happening? See, I do that annoying stuff in my adult fiction. But the weird thing is I think kids could totally handle ambiguity way better than so many adults could.
Yeah. They would demand the resolution of the ambiguity, as you say, but still enjoy the book. Yeah, for sure.
Thinking of your music fandom, I don't know if I've ever heard you speak on this or ask you this. Are you able to listen to music while you write? And second question, did this book have any sort of playlist?
I can't listen to music that I like if I'm listening to otherwise. The short version is I can't listen to things with lyrics because I focus on lyrics. Like I love lyrics. I'm such a lyric nerd. Unless it's something like Swans, where like the lyrics are more almost just like another instrument. So I'm usually listening to a lot of like movie soundtracks.
Who is your favorite lyricist, or a favorite? Give me I just need a recommendation.
Yeah, I'll give you so my newest one. This band's compared to some other bands is like only like 10 or 15 years old, but the band's called Pile.
Okay.
Rick McGuire is the lead singer, lyricist, and he's amazing. One of my favorite things I've done with my writing is I won't use that word, but I reach out to a lot of my favorite musicians. Totally fan out.
Do they write back?
And a lot have, and I've become friends with quite a few. And I just had lunch with Rick from Pile. Yeah. He was such a nice guy. Yeah.
I had a bad experience with that. I tried that once.
Oh, no.
I was at an event, and I won't say who it was,
Yeah.
but I think he's my favorite lyricist, period. Like, since Bob Dylan, this guy. And we happened to be at the same book event.
Oh.
And I walked up to him, and he was so nice. And he was like, hey, but his entry question was, do you read work in translation? And I just, my mind went blank, and I go, no. And then he goes, I'm going to go get a drink. And I was like, okay. And he walked away, and I was like, fuck, because of course I do. Like, my fairy tales are all, yes, I do. But I blew it. So you're cooler than I am, clearly.
Yeah, I'm probably like, maybe I'm approaching bands that don't have as a huge following too. Like, they're small indie bands. No, I've been lucky. You know, Paige Hamilton of Helmet was a super nice guy. Clutch, Neil Fallon is a big science fiction reader. A band called McCluskey, Future Left in England. So what my secret is, what I do is, I didn't do it with this book because it was middle grade, and actually the timeline for me was a little compressed, but mainly because it was middle grade. But anyway, with my adult books, I always try to quote some lyrics in the epigraph, and so then I reach out and try to get permission. So that's how I've met a lot of them.
Clever. That's a good trick.
And it's through email first, so that there's less chance of the awkwardness happening.
Yeah, and they don't write back being like, you don't need my permission to use my lyrics, dude.
No,
this is a transparent.
Harper makes me do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
I know. They make me like write up a contract. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that legal? Okay, we'll discuss legal later. Yeah, interesting though. Interesting. And playlist. Do you have a playlist?
I did not have a specific playlist this one. I listened to a lot of soundtracks, but stereotypically horror movie soundtracks.
One last question. We have time for one last question. Yes.
I'm from Germany.
Hi.
It seems to me that your books are not very known there.
That is
Would
correct.
you like to change that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, to me, it seems like such a roulette, or I don't know, game of chance, like what hits, what doesn't. Some of my books have been published in Germany. I think A Head Full of Ghosts, In the Cabinet at the End of the World. Oh, thank you. Yeah. I don't know.
Your editors keep saying that horror doesn't work.
My agent's answering for you. Yeah.
That sounded like an offer that was about to be made. But maybe we'll let you, because I can help you change that. Is what the next sentence was going to be. All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming, and a huge thanks to Paul for being here. Great conversation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Thank you so much for coming. I want to encourage folks to buy your copy of the book at the register. We have them signed ready and everything, and Paul will be personalizing right next to where my coworker is pointing. We just ask that you grab your belongings because we do turn the store back into a bookstore right after. And I want to encourage folks on the live stream to buy a copy of the book using the link in the live stream description. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you.